5 feminine traits men find irresistible in a woman. Look, I hear this question all the time. Like, what can I do that a man actually pursues me, cherishes me, supports me, desires me? At the same time, like, what can I do to avoid him ignoring me, rejecting me, or abandoning me? Well, you came to the right place, so let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm Antia Boyd with Magnetize, and together with my husband, Brody Boyd, we've been helping thousands of successful women all over the world to get the loving, long-term, and connected relationship that they desire fast without frustration and attracting emotionally unavailable men and wasting their time. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The number one feminine trait men find irresistible in a woman is what I call the unicorn effect. Look, I know so many women are actually afraid to stand out. They rather want to fit in, and that is because they don't want to get rejected. They may have been ridiculed in high school or in grade school, or they may have been even punished by the parents for not fitting in, for potentially not following the rules and the regulations, or maybe the church requirements, whatever the case may be. And because of that, they have actually a lot of resistance to being unique, to being themselves, to standing out. The problem with that is, if you're not standing out, how is your man supposed to find you? How does he know when he, let's say, swipes through online dating profiles that you are the one, as opposed to the other 10 women that he read through as well? You see, what happens is, if you're resisting to be that unicorn because you don't want to be embarrassed, or you don't want to feel weird or awkward, and you certainly don't want to be called out, then the problem is that will also show up in your communication, and of course in your texting, and of course also in how you write online dating profiles. The reason being is because you're dimming your light. You're making sure your emotional expression is minimized, and whether you realize that or not, that is actually happening. And it could also show up in your online dating profile. When you write, for example, just bland things like you like hiking or you like music, and you're not even really standing out. You're not willing to take a risk, do something different. Write, for example, about like a cliffhanger or a unique experience that you had that you can take the man on a journey with. However, women who have the unicorn effect or have developed the unicorn effect, because you can certainly do that because you already have it inside of yourself, they are being wanted and desired because the man actually sees that she's authentic, she's confident, because she's willing to shine her unique light, and she's not afraid to stand out. So for example, when I met my husband Brody, gosh, I was definitely such a unicorn, to the extent that I used phrases from Germany, as I'm originally from Germany, that my husband could not possibly understand what they mean, but yet he would bounce off them. Why? Because he thought, wow, I've never met anyone like it. I don't even know how to translate this, but it's so fun because this woman is not afraid to be herself and to potentially even laugh at herself. The next feminine trait men find irresistible is self-investment. You see, whatever you focus on expands. Now, this is law. So I'm asking you a question. Do you think the attention of a man is expanding more when you focus on yourself or when you focus on him? Now, the answer is, of course, when you focus on yourself, which is crazy because for so many years and decades, you have been taught, however you treat other people, that's how you're being treated, which is absolutely not true. The quality of men that you attract into your life is directly proportional to the relationship you have to yourself. But let's talk about it. Why is this not happening? Well, you may have grown up in a household where you didn't get your needs met. You had an emotionally unavailable parent, an avoidant parent, maybe even a narcissistic parent. And because of that, you learned I better put other people, my mom, my dad, and so on a pedestal, and I focus on them and I invest my time, energy, and sometimes, this is even crazier, money into them, so I'm not only safe, but I'm also accepted. Now, it doesn't work long term because even though you may be safe, you're never respected. Men will actually disrespect you because you are giving your power away. You're not respecting yourself. You're not investing into yourself. You see, you hand a man a resume how to treat you based on how you treat yourself. So are you loving yourself? Are you speaking kind words to yourself? Are you the first one on a list of people that you would like to meet? I know this sounds really funny because if I were to tell you, write a list of people you would like to meet, it would be so many other people, but it wouldn't be yourself. And then you may say, well, you said people. Well, aren't you a person? And then you see, okay, you're actually not really focusing on yourself. Or if I ask you what you actually want, what you really desire, oftentimes you don't even know what it is because you got so caught up in what other people want, what they want to eat, where they want to go on vacation, what they want to wear, what church to go to, what man you should get married to, and so on. And some of you who are watching will actually nod your head right now because you got into a marriage because your parents wanted that for you, not because you wanted that for yourself. And because you were focusing on him, you didn't get your needs met. As a matter of fact, the moment you were expressing your needs or you were attempting to, you were probably gaslit. And that then led to walking on eggshells. So therefore, what men find really irresistible is when you are investing in yourself. Now, the next trait that men find irresistible in a woman is charisma. Charisma. Now, what actually is this? Now, one way how some people receive a person that has charisma is when that person has a lot of ability of variations to express themselves. So what do I mean by that? Like when people label people as charismatic when they have a huge range. It can be, for example, mean a huge range of emotions. So it can be they have no problem getting angry and getting really into their body and maybe into their rage. But they're also not afraid to be soft and to be vulnerable and maybe even cry. Now, the reason why that's so charismatic is because those people, they oftentimes seem to be like completely opposite in their expressions. And other people wonder, particularly men, of course, which one is this woman? Is it this woman or is it this woman? For example, I have a girlfriend and the men are in line for her. Now, why is that? Well, she's very accomplished. She's actually like a film writer. She's also like now a doctor, right? But she's so feminine. I mean, she's just feminine. Like when you watch her embodiment, how she dresses, but also just how she moves. And the men can't figure her out because they're like, well, wait a minute, like you have this unique combination. We talked about the unicorn earlier, and that's so attractive. And again, she's not afraid to completely be herself. So this is what's called charismatic. Now, also charismatic people are attractive. Attraction, magnetic, right? That means they are congruent inside of themselves. They know who they are and they trust themselves. And therefore, they're magnetic because they're not contradicting themselves. They're not doing something that's not in alignment for them, so they get actually like acknowledged or like accepted. They don't really care about that because they're focusing on themselves. The next feminine trait men find irresistible in a woman is what I call grace over punishment. And I'm going to start it off with a story that I heard years ago. And that was a man driving in a car with a woman, like his girlfriend at the time, and they got lost. Look, things happen in life. You get lost, you take the wrong turn, you say the wrong thing, but now you're at a crossroads because you get to make a decision. You get to either treat this man with compassion and understand, well, we all make mistakes. We all screw up, right? Or you're going to punish him. Now, chances are, unfortunately, if you punish yourself, if you've been punished, if you're harshly criticizing yourself when you make a mistake, unfortunately, you're also more likely to then punish the man. Now, unfortunately, that's not going to work because he's going to feel emasculated. And in the worst case scenario, if he stays, he's going to be much more feminine and passive and just reactive as opposed to being proactive and being in his masculine and trusting himself and pursuing you. So in this particular story, the woman had a choice to make, like I said, and the man was, of course, terrified to be judged by her, right? I mean, he's the man. He needs to know the direction after all. And so as they were pulling over, because they had to figure out where they are and how they can turn back, like she said, well, what a great opportunity to enjoy the sunset. Now imagine what that would do in a man. Well, imagine like you having the opportunity to shift a man's state in that moment. Like what's going to happen is that he's going to feel empowered. He's going to feel encouraged. He's going to feel ready to face the battle, to face the challenge. Now, I know what you want to tell me. You may want to tell me, like hundreds of women have, well, thousands have come from me, but definitely hundreds that I've heard that from. It's like, well, Antia, but you don't know. I was doing everything that I could in my marriage, and the man was still not stepping up to the plate, right? He was still passive from the get-go. Of course, this can happen because he could have also been feminine in the first place, right? He could have been like more passive due to his own childhood upbringing and so on. However, when you have a masculine man by your side and you have this opportunity, right, lead with grace. Now, the other beautiful thing that it does for you, because we talked about self-investment earlier, is that you get to actually feel loving towards yourself, because I at least feel that in order for you to be completely compassionate to this man in that moment, in some way, shape, or form, you need to have a compassionate relationship with yourself. And why is that? Well, because otherwise it's energetically not aligned. So you may say, like, oh, no big deal, but the energy will speak a different language because you're harsh with yourself. But if you're loving and compassionate with yourself, then in a moment when a man messed up or took the wrong turn or said something that was maybe not the best thing to say, like you can touch into that part inside of you that's self-compassionate and then project that out onto him in a positive way. The next trait that a man is finding irresistible in a woman is appreciation of the unknown. You see, if you are more on the anxious scale, if you're an anxious attachment style, you resist the unknown as much as you possibly can. Now, this is, of course, because in your childhood, when you were entering the unknown, you felt helpless, you felt powerless, maybe you got punished, you felt lost. Let me give you an example. Maybe you were 3-4 years old and you wanted to get your emotional needs met. Maybe you wanted your parent to just lift you up or just give you a hug. But instead, they were like totally dismissive and just kind of looked around, maybe didn't even look at you, didn't attune to you. What do you think that did to you? It made you feel like panic, really, on a nervous system level, panic, because you felt lost. You're like, wait a minute, I'm trying to orient myself, because orient myself, what I mean by that is I'm trying to understand, wait, did I do something wrong that my parent, like, kind of was just dismissive and just kind of looked around and just kind of disconnected, right? So did I do something different? So is it me, or is it the timing, right? Did I just ask at the right time, right? And well, it can't be my parent, because my parent is like basically God in this particular case, right? So it's very confusing, because on the one hand, you actually know that it is your parent because you're infinitely worthy, and you also come out of, let's say, your mom's womb, right? So you know, okay, at some point I got nurtured, I was connected, I was taken care of, and now out of the sudden that's not the case anymore. Why is that? Now, what you're gonna say is, this is a moment of the unknown, isn't it? When your parents don't respond to you in the way that you think should happen. You're reaching out for love, for affection, for emotional support, and you get that met. Now, when you don't get that met, it's the unknown, because you're like, why not? What's happening? Now, the brain is going to say, okay, I got to avoid this unknown, because that's when I feel the most horrified and panicked and scared and all of these things. Now, unfortunately, because of that fear, it pushes men away, right? Like, fear is repelling, because like it becomes tighter and tighter, and you're holding on to him more and more, and you're hoping that he's gonna get all your needs, you know what I mean, meets all your needs, and that he's gonna be rescuing you, and there's so much expectation on a man that when the man feels that, he can actually go into panic. Like, he can actually feel like, I'm retracting, I'm gonna go, but like the turtle in the house, right? So the reason why men find it irresistible when a woman is actually appreciating the unknown is because, hey, so what if he doesn't text back right away? What if you don't hear from him right away? Or what if he changes his texting style? Maybe he doesn't put a smiley face underneath it, or maybe now he doesn't call you every other day. Maybe he calls you once a week. Now, instead of making that mean something, that means that you're not worthy, or that you bother him, or that he's about to break up with you, like, women who are confident, they love the unknown. They're like, well, so many things are possible. And even if I feel a little vulnerable in this moment, what's the treasure of this moment right now, right? And what the treasure of this moment is, for example, is connecting more with myself, with my inner world, which could, for example, mean your intuition, right? Like honing in more the skills that have nothing to do with the external, but help you actually very much navigate the unknown, right? Like your spiritual gifts that we all have. You get to develop them more because you get to feel into what's really happening, as opposed to focusing on the external and getting anxious. So, for example, what I would do, because of course, as a recovered anxious attachment style, and honestly, I was oftentimes acting like a fearful avoidant. If you have studied attachment styles, right, like I would be, if nothing was happening on the surface, by the way, side note, if nothing happens on the surface, a lot is happening under the surface. Just saying, okay, spiritually, energetically, a lot is actually moving and getting you ready for the growth that you're about to go through. But you can't see that because you're so addicted to the visible, the tangible. So what I would do instead is I would actually do what you're doing right now. I would go on YouTube and I would watch encouraging videos and stories that would inspire me, that would get me into a better mood, get me in a much more empowered state. And then from that state, it would be much more bearable to be in the unknown. I wouldn't resist it so much. So even after I'm done with having a phone call with a man that I was invested in, like I would be able to hang up. I would be able to be the first one to hang up, which, by the way, I highly recommend that. I call it the cliffhanger effect, right? Because the man will be like, oh, wow, you must have a life to get back to. Now, when he feels like you have a life to get back to, even if it's the unknown and you don't know what life that is, like he's going to pursue you more, right? Because he feels like you're not just like anchoring into him because you want to have his resources, but that you have resources, you have a life yourself. So in a nutshell, we can oftentimes get so lost and wanting to impress men and wanting to be turning ourselves into a pretzel and all of these things only to push them further away. While the truth actually is the opposite of what you think, is being actually your unique self, shining your unique light. So it's kind of like being the North Star, so to say, so your man can find you and you can stop wasting your time. If you haven't done already, take my free love quiz and virtual coaching session to get the loving, connected, and long-term relationship you desire fast without loneliness, trust issues, and attracting any more emotionally unavailable men by hopping over to getlovequiz.com or simply click that link in the description or the comments below. I hope this was helpful for you. Lots of love, and I will talk to you soon.